Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Q2 FY23 earnings conference call of Century Ply, hosted by DAM Capital Advisors Limited. Before the call, I would like to give a disclaimer that this call is just to discuss the company's historical numbers and future perspectives, and in no way these should be construed as an invitation to invest in the shares of the company. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Asim Bhade from DAM Capital Advisors Limited. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Hey, thanks, Vivian, and good evening, everyone. On behalf of DAM Capital Advisors, I welcome you all to Century Plyboards Q2 FY23 earnings call. We have the senior management from the company with us on the line. I will now hand over the floor to Mr. Keshav Bhajanka, Executive Director. Thank you, and over to you, Keshav.
Thank you, everyone, for taking your valuable time out for attending the Q2 FY23 Century Plyboards Investor Conference Call. I am Keshav Bhajanka, Executive Director of Century Plyboards. I have alongside me Ms. Nikita Bansal, Executive Director, Mr. Arun Julasaria, CFO, and Mr. Nehal Shah, CSO. I presume that every one of you would have gone through our numbers in detail. Let me still brief you on the key highlights of Q2. At the onset, it gives me immense pleasure to share that we have done very strong cash flow generation of rupees 223 crores for the first half of the fiscal, despite huge inflationary pressure that the industry has seen in the recent past. After delivering record sales in Q2, Q3, and Q4 of last year, we have achieved another record sale of over 900 crores revenue in the second quarter. Our plywood and laminate segment revenue recorded 9% and 8% growth YOY, while MDF and particle board segment revenue grew 23 and 24% YOY for the quarter. With the sustained input cost pressure in most of the wood panel segments, our overall gross margins were impacted by 90 basis points on sequential basis to 33.15%. The company, however, was able to improve its overall adjusted EBITDA margin marginally by 20 basis points to 17.3% on a sequential basis. While our plywood and laminate EBITDA margins improved, we saw a considerable drop in EBITDA margin on sequential basis in our MDF and particle board segments. This has been driven by steadily rising timber and select chemical prices and operating deleverage. The reported margins in these segments were, however, still higher than our guided EBITDA margins of 25% for both the segments. It may be noted that the input cost inflation has softened a bit post Q2. While core veneer prices have come off slightly over the past few days, chemical prices, particularly phenol, melamine, have softened a bit in Q2 and are likely to further soften in the next couple of months. For MDF in particular, the timber prices, however, continue to remain slightly elevated. We have taken no price increases in any of our segments over the course of this quarter. Our MDF brownfield expansion at Hoshiarpur is as per schedule and is expected to come on stream by November 2022. Our South MDF capex has received all requisite approvals and the machinery has been ordered. We expect the facility to come on stream in H2 FY24. Our greenfield laminate manufacturing unit in AP will come up in two phases. The first phase is expected to become operational in Q2 FY24. Our greenfield particle board project in Chennai, the board has approved investing in a large particle board project with a capacity of 1200 cubic meters with an investment outlay of rupees 550 crores. We expect the plant to commission in Q4 FY25. Our working capital stands reduced by 3 more days to 55 days in Q2. We remain a net cash positive company with net cash position of rupees 176 crores as of 30th of September. Our Q2 ROCE stood at 22.22%, but adjusted for one-offs, the impairment loss in Myanmar and the entry tax reversal, the ROCE for the quarter stands at 29% plus. We have taken an impairment on our investments in Myanmar subsidiary to the extent of rupees 47 crores in Q2. This would reduce losses to the extent of 5 to 6 crores per annum on the consolidated books year on year, as it has become nearly impossible to conduct business in Myanmar due to the change in regime. We have written back our earlier provided entry tax worth rupees 14.25 crores relating to prior years after a favorable verdict from the appellate tribunal. Despite the challenging business environment, we continue to maintain our FY23 revenue growth guidance of 20% plus for the company. The second segment-wise growth guidance is plywood 15% volume and 20% value growth, laminate 15% volume and value growth, MDF 20% volume and value growth, particle board 10% volume and 20% value growth. We also maintain our margin guidance for our business segments: plywood 13 to 15%, laminate 14 to 16%, and MDF and particle board 25% plus. Thank you.
So would you like to begin the question and answer session?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Participants who wish to ask a question may kindly press star followed by 1 on your touch-tone telephone. If you wish to withdraw yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Rahul Agarwal from InCred Capital. Kindly proceed.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Thank you so much. Keshav, just 3 questions. Firstly, companies getting into a very high capex mode. It's obviously positive as you see sustained demand and opportunities there, but the execution risks are increasing in terms of, land acquisition delays, cost overrun, labor requirement deployment, stuff like that. Any thoughts in terms of how do you basically manage this risk going into next 3 years, because we're going to be into high capex mode for almost 2 years from now? That's my first question.
So, you're absolutely right. We are going into a high capex mode. And you see, we are taking a number of initiatives. For instance, the particle board plant that you have just heard, we already have acquired the land. We got the land from Sipcot in Tamil Nadu. And that is a big relief because, as you know, acquisition of land becomes a substantial challenge. As for delays and cost overruns, you're completely correct. There is a cost overrun environment today because of the high steel prices and high cement prices and so on and so forth. But I think we are able to provision for that to whatever extent possible. The ROCs on the units, even considering the higher capex costs, are still fairly healthy. And one way that we are managing the risk is by creating a very strong execution team. I think this has helped us in the past as well, and even today it is helping us in set up the most economical and viable units possible.
So in terms of, manpower deployment, both at senior leadership plus, middle management, because you have so many plants coming up, how's that really going on right now?
That is actually our first and topmost priority, and we have expanded the team substantially over the course of the past few months. This was the first thought that came into our mind as to who is going to execute. But thankfully, we have been able to onboard senior management and very, very good resources, I would say. This has given us a lot of confidence that we will be able to deliver on our capex projects on time.
Got that. Secondly, you mentioned MDF particle board margins 25% plus. That is for the current year. But if you could just share what is really happening from an industry perspective going into next 12 months, and what do you think about margins going into 24 and fiscal 25? Like sustainable, I know the range is 20-25, but if you could give any indication, please. That's my second question.
You see, it is the reason we say 25%, even though the previous quarter may have been 30% plus, something of that sort, is because there will be ups and downs. Right now, there is pressure because import prices have come down due to shipping rates reducing. But despite that, we are being able to maintain decent margins. Going forward, again, there is going to be a scenario in the industry, say 12 or 18 months down the line, where there's going to be a overcapacity, and at that point in time, margins might get squeezed temporarily. But going forward long term, I think sustainable margins for us would be 25% or thereabout, because I believe that with our brand, with our supply chain excellence, we'll be able to generate substantially higher margins compared to the rest of the industry. And I think 20% is somewhat of a requirement if you want to set up a very high capex plant in either of these two products.
So 25 is applicable both to MDF and particle board going into like long term, right? Sustainable.
Yes. There could be phases where margins are slightly lower, and there will be phases where margins are definitely higher. But long-term sustainable margins are looking at 25%.
I understand that. And lastly, if I may, just on the overall EBITDA margins, obviously there are a lot of moving parts now, given your new capacities, largely coming up in fiscal 24, and a lot of that are also value added. Next 3 years, I would imagine, purely because assuming that MDF particle board also normalize between this 25% band, the company should make about 15 to 16% at a company level. Is that fair to assume? I know there is no perfect answer to this, but just as a range, next 3 years, is that okay?
Very good question. Was making me think. But see, we have always stated that our objective is that we will attempt for 13 to 15% EBITDA margins in ply, 14 to 16% in laminates, and we'll attempt for 25% plus in both MDF and particle board. That is going to be our endeavor. That is what we are targeting. So if we achieve all of these, then definitely we should have 16, 17% margin for the company.
Cool. I'll come back in the queue. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Venkatesh Balasubramanian from Axis Capital. Kindly proceed.
One simple bookkeeping question. The Myanmar subsidiary write-off of 47 crores, that is very clear in the standalone numbers, right? It's put out as an exceptional or an extraordinary item. Now, where is the adjustment in the consolidated numbers for this one-time write-off? Is it actually, first of all, is the write-off for 47 crores in the consolidated numbers, or it is 29.8 crores? If you could clarify, and where is this actually being booked in the consolidated numbers?
No, in case of consolidation of accounts, we have to add line-by-line items. So, okay. In case of consolidation, our investment value is adjusted with the loss shown in that subsidiary. So it will not appear as write-off or impairment account in consolidation because loss has already been factored in line-by-line consolidation.
Okay, so line-by-line consolidation, so you're basically telling it is in all items, raw material and...
Because the net worth of that company is now reduced to 12 crore only. So 47 crore plus 12 crore, 59 crore was the total capital invested. So in line-by-line consolidation, I have taken care of that 47 crore loss.
So there is 47 crore of loss across various line items, right from raw material cost, employee cost, yes, other expenses, depreciation, everything.
Yes.
Okay.
That is line by line consolidation. So there it will not appear as impairment loss.
Okay, fine, understood. Now, is it possible for you to repeat your FY23 guidance in terms of value, volume, and margins for each of those segments, and also request you to repeat it a little slowly so that we can take it down?
The guidance is 15% volume and 20% value growth for plywood, 15% volume and value growth for laminates, 20% volume and value growth for MDF, 10% volume and 20% value growth for particle board.
Yeah. What about margins?
And the margin guidance for plywood, we will attempt for EBITDA margins 13 to 15%. For laminates, between 14 and 16%, and MDF and particle board 25% plus.
Now, I guess for the first time I heard a 20% number for MDF. I guess till the last last quarter, what was being communicated was you will definitely do 25% or more longer term. That is the sustainable margin. But I don't know. In the previous participant's question, it said that short term it could go to 20 to 25%. Have you communicated anything like that?
No, I don't think we have communicated anything like that. I was talking about 20% volume and value growth. In terms of margins, guidance still is 25%.
So you believe even if there is overcapacity in, let's say, FY24, you can still do 25%?
In the short term, there could be an impact, but we did not anticipate doing 35% in Q1 either. So long-term guidance is 25%.
Okay. And where does, see, this is the reason I am again belaboring on this point is this is a question which keeps coming up when we discuss Century Plyboards with the buy side is where do you get this confidence that it will not go below 25%? Because imports have already reached the ports and in port cities, MDF prices for imports are around 8 to 10% below the prices of that of the domestic market. So why 25%? What is so sacrosanct about 25%? Why can't it go to 20% or 18% if there is an oversupply? Is something which we ask and we don't really know how to answer it. So if you could throw some light on it, it will be very helpful.
Definitely. So you see, today our capacity right now is based in the north. Our capacity in the south is going to come on board only end of next year. In the north, the freight cost gives us a major advantage. Because from the south to the north, transporting from a port location to say Delhi is not a very cheap affair. And in the case of MDF, that is not a very high cost per kg. So transportation and freight cost plays a large role. So that is one. Secondly, the capacity that we are commissioning right now in the north is being commissioned taking into account a lot of synergies that we will get from our existing unit. A lot of synergies in sales and marketing, and we will benefit from operating leverage. And you've seen in the past, when operating leverage has come into play, margins have tended to rise. So this is for the north. As far as south is concerned, we are setting up our capacity in the hub of timber. We are setting up in a market where the timber price today is 3 rupees and 15 paise as compared to 5.5 to 6 rupees in the north. This is going to be a substantial benefit that we have. And with this, we believe that we'll be able to do good EBITDA margins in the south as well.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that. All the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question. The next question is from the line of Achal Lohade from GM Financial. Kindly proceed.
Yeah, congratulations for great numbers. My first question was if you could just clarify on this MDF margin. QOQ they are down almost 10 percentage points. I see the realizations are fairly same. If you can give a clarity as to what has driven this margin impact in terms of each of the items, in terms of raw material or chemicals, etc.
Hi. Thank you, Achal. So there are two factors that are coming to play for MDF. First, gross margins are down because of raw material cost pressure. And secondly, we have had operating deleverage in this quarter because of a breakdown in the plant. It was a scheduled maintenance that took longer than expected, hence we're saying it was a breakdown. But in the current quarter, we're expecting both the benefit of operating leverage as well as a slight easing out of raw material prices. Hence, I think that our EBITDA margin should improve from this quarter onward.
But if I see your 25% margin guidance, actually it appears that it will be less than that in the second half. How do we explain that then?
So we have given 25% guidance even prior to the beginning of the year. So we did 35% in Q1 with 25% guidance. 25% is the long-term margin guidance. The reason that we don't want to comment on short term is because there are a lot of fluctuations that can take place as we have already observed.
And Achal, even if you look at the current Q2 margins and MDF, if you adjust for forex loss, which is around 2.45 crore, which is relating to capex for buyer's credit with respect to MDF, your margins adjusted for it comes to around 26.7%. So that is one. And secondly, on the operating leverage side, our capacity utilization was 80% for Q2 compared to 89% in the first quarter. So these two things will help us at least maintain our 25% plus margins. That is what we are seeing.
Understood. Can you help us understand how are the current prices of MDF in in South, and what is the import parity price? And also, in terms of import quantum, if you can give some clarity as to how the imports have been in terms of quantity in last 2-3 months.
So imports have increased. The reason behind that is lower cost of freight. Exact numbers, Neil can get back to you with. I don't have the exact numbers on me right now. But definitely there has been an increase in imports due to lower shipping and freight costs. This has affected South India to a certain extent. But as of now, it does not put meaningful pressure on the domestic market.
Understood. And in terms of the particle board, can you help us understand what is the market size, how much is organized, how much is imports, what is the import parity there? I know you have given a bottom line in terms of the margin expectation, but if you can give some color on the industry dynamics as well.
Definitely. You see, in particle board, the total capacity would be 1.5 billion cubic meters plus. And most of the market is unorganized. There are virtually no organized players other than us and perhaps some associated decor. Most of the lines that are operating today are multi-daylight lines. So even our line is a multi-daylight line. Now there are a number of disadvantages that a multi-daylight press has. For instance, firstly, we have a higher glue consumption. We have a higher density than what we could operate at a multi-daylight, at a Conti press. And we have a higher sanding loss. So taking all of these into account, there are numerous advantages that having a Conti press will bring to the table. Hence, the decision to go for a 1200 cubic meter continuous press line. Particle board is a far lower price product compared to even MDF. So freight becomes a major issue. South India is the largest hub because South India has the largest OEM in the country. And these OEMs have accepted particle board. If you look at the acceptance of MDF is higher in the north, whereas the acceptance of particle board is higher in South India. So as such, we believe that the market is going to do very well long term. We have over 2.5 years where we will set up the new capacity. And I think by the time that the capacity operates, considering all the advantages that we will be having, it is going to be a highly lucrative project for us.
If I recall earlier, you were talking about flexi capacity in terms of MDF and particle board. So this particle board capacity, there is no such flexibility. Is that understanding right?
Yes, absolutely correct. This is a pure particle board capacity. One point that I forgot to mention, sorry, was that now in this capacity, because today we are limited by virtue of being a multi-light, we can only manufacture either 9x6 or 8x6 sizes. And that too, we can only manufacture 9 mm and above. Once we have a continuous press, we will have a much wider range. So that is going to be another major advantage going forward.
Understood. And in terms of, the cost, the A&P spend in this quarter and the BCG cost, if any?
Yes, we have BCG costs. So BCG has started working they were working on laminates as well, and they have started working on particle board. In particle board, they have already identified substantial savings, which could lead to a 2-2.5% bump in EBITDA going forward. A&P spend has come down because in quarter one, we had the IPL, and that is a substantial part of our overall marketing budget. So that spend was front-loaded.
Would you be able to quantify how much is the A&P in the second quarter?
Neil?
It's 2% lower than what it was in Q1.
So if you look at the overall company, it's 1% lower as far as company as a whole is concerned. And for plywood division, it's almost like 2% as Nikhil was.
As a percentage of revenue you're talking about, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Understood.
Thank you.
And one more question I had, in terms of the plywood segment, obviously given the high base, the YOY numbers appear muted, but can you help us understand how's the demand scenario out there for the plywood segment, and can we expect a similar run rate in terms of volumes in coming quarters?
Would you like to take this?
Yeah. So, in terms of expectation, we expect a single-digit growth in H2 over last H2. See, demand has definitely, the demand that we were seeing during COVID, definitely the growth run rate is not the same as that this year, but we've been able to sustain numbers and we are growing. We had a high base, like you said. So because of that, Q2 number growth is seeming little low. But overall, I think we are quite happy with our performance and we expect to grow over in H2 as well. And Q3 definitely being a festive quarter will be lesser growth, and Q4 will be where we'll have a higher growth.
So when you're talking about growth, are you meaning from a YOY perspective, because you will have festivals even in the base quarter, right?
Yeah, YOY perspective, we will definitely have single-digit growth, as I mentioned, in H2.
Right. And can you also give some sense about how the premium segment is doing, how non-premium is doing in terms of the growth and the outlook?
So let me start with the
We don't specifically give numbers, but Nikita, you can say that.
Yeah, so I don't want to, like Keshav mentioned, we don't give specific numbers between Scenic and our Century brand, but just to give an idea, overall, see, Scenic operates in a much more larger base, because majority of the market today in plywood lies at that rupees 100, 80 to 100. That is where Scenic operates, because Scenic is supposed to convert local into branded. So definitely the growth rate of Scenic is going to be higher because it started from a very low base. We started the product only 3 to 4 years back. So hence the growth rate will always be higher in Scenic for the next few years. And having said that, we do have growth even in our premium segment, and that is purely because of the innovation that we are doing and the brand awareness and the brand campaigns that we are doing is really helping us grow in our premium segment as well.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Lorde.
Come back in the queue. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Participants are requested to kindly restrict your questions to 2 per participant. The next question is from the line of Sneha Talreja from Edelweiss. Kindly proceed.
Good evening, sir, and congrats on great set of numbers. And just a couple of questions from my end. Firstly, relating to demand, actually. What has suddenly led to this kind of a slow movement in demand in your sense? And extending to that question, is that the reason we are not able to take any increase in MDF, although the raw material prices are on an increasing trend, or is it the fear of imports due to which the entire industry is unable to take any price hike?
Hi, Sneha. Thank you. So you see, regarding MDF, definitely we have taken substantial price increase over the course of the past year and a half. And in MDF, there is not just the fear of imports, but if you increase prices disproportionately, you would come closer to the lowest end of plywood, where I think the entire equation of ply or MDF would move a little bit towards plywood, even though that plywood is of a lower quality. So that was one point. And your first question was?
It was just regarding the in general slowdown in demand that we are now seeing across the building material. What's your sense there? And where do you get the optimism that that's going to increase? That's going to get better.
So I think that in the last quarter you saw the impact of all the inflationary pressure that was created in the system, because prices of a lot of commodities had skyrocketed, and I think this had an impact on the home building space as well. Going forward, I think we're all very bullish, especially considering the registration numbers and the property sales numbers that are coming in. that the market is going to do well. There could be minor hiccups in the short term, but we remain very optimistic and very bullish. And I'm expecting a good recovery in H2 itself.
And just
to add on this, couple of things here. So if you look at the base also, base for entire building material industry, going into Q2 and Q3 was very, very significantly high because post-COVID, the numbers were very, very strong. So that's again a reason why people are looking this or realizing this as a very, very muted, moderate growth. So I think that is one. And second is the inflationary environment, which has also led to the situation. And now if you look at the inflationary environment, that's been almost likely to probably move down a bit. So this will again help regain the growth momentum going forward.
One more thing I would like to add. The reason we are so optimistic is because as a brand, we are continuously investing in building our brand. I think we are amongst the only brand who continuously throughout the year spends money on branding as well as on improvement in terms of technological improvement. So I think an innovation. So because of that, I think we are extremely positive that, we will keep, even if the market is muted, we will grow the way we are expecting to grow. And having said that, I think we are also working continuously on improving our cost structure and improving our market GTMs, etc. So I think that is where our optimism comes from.
That was pretty helpful, team. Thanks a lot. The last question was actually related to your margins. We've seen good amount of improvement in your plywood and laminates margin, and this laminates despite the BCG expenses coming in, and in fact both these places you are higher than your guidance. So what has led to this higher margins? Is there any exceptional item here, or these are now sustainable levels? Although I understand your long-term guidance is 13 to 15 and 14 to 16.
Nikita, would you like to?
Yeah, so I'll take up the plywood part. So actually, we are within the 13 to 15. Q1 we didn't actually. Our EBITDA margin was below because of the IPL. Like Keshav said at the beginning, IPL cost was taken in Q1. And because of that, the loading came in Q1 and that loading wasn't there in Q2, number one. Number two, we took a lot of price increases consecutively in Q1. So there was a price increase in April, there was a price increase in May end, there was some part increase even in June. So Q2 was a pure quarter where all the price increases had come into full effect. Because of that, our EBITDA is actually come back to what we expected, which is 14%.
With regards to laminates, I think, the current EBITDA margin, yes, we have worked very hard to ensure our product mix in domestic as well as export improves. And going forward, like I said, we will attempt to do 14 to 16%, but yes, we may be doing slightly better.
That's great to hear. Thanks, Keshav, and thanks, Nikita. And all the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is from the line of Shubham Agarwal from Axis Capital. Kindly proceed.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity to ask this question. Just on furthering on the comment of MDF and freight, which you would have already emphasized much on. I just wanted to understand what is the realization per truckload for ply and MDF, how different is it? And let's say what is the freight cost, if you have to ply the vehicle from, say, Hoshiarpur to Amritsar. Can you give a sense there?
Amritsar would not be a very major cost. I think the freight cost would be to tune of, say, maybe 1,000 rupees, but I don't have data with me. Nehal can give you data later. Plywood in general, our plywood would be at least 2x the cost of our MDF. So I think that is the thumb rule that we follow. But again, Nehal can get back to you with exact numbers.
So okay, I'll get that separately. Secondly, what is the price difference in imports and domestic realizations right now? The price difference between imports and domestic MDF. Yeah.
It actually depends on the location, because if you look at the north, the landed cost of imports goes up substantially. In the south, I think that MDF is currently being exported at about $220. per CBM. But on top of that, you need to add the cost of freight, you need to add the cost. So it varies from location to location.
Yeah, sorry, I was actually asking imports, price of imports and domestic in South. How different is it?
Import $220 is FOB. After that, you need to do a lot of loading, etc. I think the difference between domestic and imported prices, ballpark, because South is not really our focus area, but it would be, say, the tune of 10-15%.
Imports being cheaper?
Yes.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Hitesh Agarwal from India Inside Value Fund. Kindly proceed.
Yeah, hello. Thanks for the opportunity. In particle board, I wanted to ask what will be the asset turnover for a capex of 550 crores for the new plant?
The turnover for the new capacity will be in excess of 600 crores.
Excess of 600 crores. And what will be the kind of time gap between the commencement of the plant and its full utilization?
I think it will take about 2.5 to 3 years to utilize the plant.
Okay. One question, like in the particle board segment, could you tell me of the industry as such? What will be the percentage of imports as such? And how is the price difference between the imports and the domestic prices?
Again, it's a very fluid scenario right now. Today, imports FOB would be at about $120. I think CR would be at about $150. And domestic prices, that is just landed, then we need to take into account all the other costs. But I would say again that we would be at least 10 to 15% higher. The domestic prices would be 10 to 15% higher than imports. But domestic OEMs get a lot more flexibility from us because they can procure material virtually overnight. Whereas if you look at these imported competition, the lead time is substantially higher. Also, for a unit that does not have a prelam facility, for them to rely on imports becomes next to impossible because you cannot really select a design 4 months in advance. It is a very difficult proposition. Here, domestic manufacturers give them that flexibility.
Okay. Coming to the MDF segment as such, could you give a color on the rise in the timber and the chemical prices sequentially?
Sequentially in MDF.
Hi, Hitesh. Nehal here. So if you look at the raw material price movement in MDF segment, timber per se has gone up by almost say 10-12% since the start of the year. So that is one which has impacted the gross margins. And secondly, chemical again has gone up substantially, particularly on the so one of the chemicals what we use has gone up almost by 20-25%. So that is what has led to almost 650-700 bips gross margin deterioration.
Okay. And should we consider kind of softening of the chemical prices going forward as such?
So timber prices are still elevated, but as far as chemical prices are concerned, which had actually seen a very drastic move, they have started coming off a bit. So that is what will help us give a cushion to our margins.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Parth Bhavsar from Investec India. Kindly proceed.
Hello.
Excuse me, Parth.
Thank you for the opportunity. Sir, I have this question. So you guys are setting up a laminates plant in West Bengal, and then there's an upcoming plant in South. So what is the brownfield optionality at both these places? Like over and above the capacity that you're setting up, is there any option to increase your capacity beyond this?
Further increases in Calcutta would be difficult because we are now faced a space constraint. And in the existing premises, I don't think we'll be able to set up any more units. In Andhra, in phase 1, we are coming up with 2 hot presses, and in phase 2, we'll be coming up with a further 2. And we have created enough provision to come up with 4 units in phase 3. But that, as of now, is something that we have not thought too much about. Right now, it is about phase 1 and phase 2. But definitely we can set up to 8 lines in Andhra comfortably.
Okay. So in phase 1 and phase 2, you'll be adding 4.
Yes.
Okay. And sir, one other thing that what is the rationale to go after particle board and not plywood? Could just elaborate a little bit on that?
We always go after plywood. We are definitely looking to grow in plywood, and we have taken up a lot of balancing investment in balancing equipment across plywood so as to increase our capacity. So it is not that particle board is coming at the expense of plywood.
Okay.
And I'll add to that that we had announced that we will set up a unit in Hoshiarpur for plywood. So we are in a search for land right now. So we have some land options. So I think hopefully soon we'll be able to close something.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nikhil Agrawal from VT Capital. Kindly proceed.
Good evening, sir, and thank you for the opportunity. Sir, I wanted to know, what is the per ton timber consumption for 1 CVM production of particle board?
It would be close to 1100 kgs.
1100 kgs?
Yes, 1.1.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And sir, coming to your MDF segment, I missed what you said about to the earlier participants call. The rise in timber, what was the sequential rise in timber costs and chemical prices?
So timber cost has gone up by 10 to 12% over the course of the current year for MDF in particular in the north of India. And chemical prices had increased by in excess of 25%, but now they are showing signs of correction.
This is in 2022 or in this fiscal?
In this fiscal.
Okay, in FY. And so about your greenfield expansion for MDF, you said that it will commence production from H2 FY24.
Yes.
Okay, so that means there has been a delay of about 2 quarters.
No, we have always guided for H2 FY24. There's been zero delay in the project whatsoever.
Okay, it must be something from my mistake. That's it from me. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Udit from Yes Securities. Kindly proceed.
Yeah, so thank you for taking up my question. So just 2 parts. One is that when we mention about 15% overall growth for 23, so just, basic what we have done in H1 and the balance in H2, what would be expected? So are we looking at a decline year on year for H2?
No, we are definitely not looking at any decline. But having said that, we are not getting overly excited by good performance in H1 either.
Understood. And sir, just fundamentally on the product side, like you mentioned that in South, the OEMs have accepted the particle boards. So do you see any threat to MDF? Like we are coming up with capex in both is understandable, and in South we are coming up with MDF as well. So what just explains that part, like particle board can take market share of MDF? Structurally, just wanting to know on the category.
You see, I think we need to look at it from a little more holistic point of view. If you look at particle board, the usability in OEMs is excellent. It is a highly malleable product, and for office furniture, it is a product that is durable because it is not as heavy usage as domestic furniture would be. For domestic furniture, MDF usage is still very strong. In the South, the acceptance of particle board has been there for quite some time now. Whereas in the North, particle board has really not been accepted as a very strong or very good product because MDF penetrated much earlier. So I think both are going to grow substantially. As we have mentioned earlier, the particle board capacity in India would be about 1.5 billion cubic meters, whereas the particle board capacity in China is 50 million cubic meters. So we are still 1/30th of their size. There is a lot of growth, lot of room for growth. And in MDF as well, our capacity would be 2 million, whereas China's I think could be around 55 or 60 million. So again, there is substantial room for growth in both. I don't think growth in either category will come at the cost of the other, but definitely both are going to be high growth categories going forward.
Got it, sir. And just lastly, following up on particle boards, what kind of industry growth are you expecting? And like you mentioned, it is a highly fragmented, unorganized industry. Will we be able to get any pricing power, or will we be just the industry dynamics on this one?
I think, more than pricing power, we will be able to give a range of products that only a few limited number of players would be able to offer. So the unorganized players would actually not be able to compete, considering certain products they cannot manufacture. So for instance, less than 9 cannot be manufactured in any multi-blade press. Today, even we cannot manufacture less than 9 But going forward, only 3 or I think 4 players who will have continuous press lines will be able to offer these products. So that gives us a substantial advantage in the market. And once these products come into play, once they're accepted, then we'll have pricing power because the threat of competition is going to be far lower.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you for answering.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Prav from Equirus Securities. Kindly proceed.
Yeah, thank you for taking the question. Sir, I wanted to understand on if you can throw some light on how the MDF prices are moving globally. That was my first question. And the second question was, how long do you think the timber availability issue is going to be a major problem for the industry? Because as per my understanding, at least for next 2 years, things are going to remain tight on the timber availability issue in India.
I'll answer the second part first. Definitely, there is a crunch of timber, and that is something that we are all facing. But the result of this is a much higher timber price, which has led to tremendous amount of plantation. Now, if you drive from Chandigarh to Hoshiarpur or from Amritsar to Hoshiarpur, you will see the quantum of agroforestry that is taking place. So you're right, for a couple of years we might be under pressure, but after that, the quantum of timber that will be available in Punjab itself will be a net surplus state. And I'm sure that this is happening in practically all other parts also, because with this higher timber price, for farmers, this becomes a very lucrative proposition, especially considering that, they don't need to give as much time to a eucalyptus as they need to give to a wheat or to a rice. And the cycle with these higher prices really moves in their favor, particularly for lands that are not very arable, lands that are not very fertile. This becomes a very viable option. Secondly, internationally, yes, prices have softened for MDF, but what has also happened is that the rupee has depreciated from 72, 73 levels to 80 levels. So that is straight a 10% increase in cost, right? So overall, this softening has been cushioned by this impact of the rupee depreciating.
Okay, sir. And sir, how are the laminate exports for us are shaping up? Because industry seems to be doing quite well on the export front. So are we aggressively targeting exports as a growth opportunity for us because we have also a lot of room to catch up in the domestic market, or we are going to focus on domestic only?
No, we are going to be focusing on both. You see, in exports, higher sizes are required. Till now in laminates, we only operate at 8x4 size. For exports, we have requirement for 10x4 size and a 14x6 or a 12x6 size. In Andhra, we are coming up with one 14x6 press and one 10x4 press. Post this, a lot of international markets, a lot of export markets will be open to us that till now have not been. So definitely we are aggressive on exports. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of headroom there, and we are focusing on the same.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ashish Kumar from Infinity Alternatives. Kindly proceed.
Thank you, and congratulations for a good steady set of numbers. So a couple of questions, one a near-term kind of in the question, and the second is a longer term. On the near term, from the way we stand in terms of the EBITDA margins and the revenues, do you see any sequential pressure point over the next 2, 3, 4 quarters, or should we assume this to be a base number with the new revenues being added from new capacity expansion? Is that a fair way to look at it?
Nehal?
Yeah, hi. So basically, if you look at the raw material cost, as I said earlier, some of the raw material prices are definitely on their way down, at least over the next couple of months, which you can see at the moment. So to that extent, the pressure would be easing out, particularly with respect to those chemicals. Even as far as plywood is concerned, core veneer prices have dropped a bit, possibly around 2.5 to 3%. So finally, there's a respite to that because those were the prices which were consistently increasing gradually over the last 4 to 6 quarters. So to that extent, yes, we should get benefited to that extent. Yeah, so and as far as growth is concerned, obviously with the new capacities coming up on stream, we should be able to take advantage of those coming on time.
Sure. And second one was from a slightly longer term. We've announced massive capex in businesses which are 25% EBITDA margin, let's say, based on the longer term guidance. So from a company perspective today, if we look at it, particle board plus MDF is roughly around 21-22% revenues. But let's say 3 years out, would it be fair to assume that that number proportion could be more like 40%? And if I assume, let's say, 15% for your plywood plus laminate business and a 25% for this business, would that mean that from a company perspective, we could be starting to hit margins which are closer to the 20% mark rather than the 15% mark?
Yeah. I think, you hit the nail on the head. Definitely, that is the reason why we are investing so substantially in these areas. Having said that, because, of the fact that MDF and particle board are part of our industry, we have the opportunity to reinvest our cash flows in high ROCE businesses. So this is a very, very, I would say, good time and a good opportunity for us. Going forward, yes, we are looking at a higher percentage of the mix coming from MDF and particle board, despite a good growth in plywood and laminate. So this should push the margins slightly higher. One more point that we need to understand is the working capital requirements in both particle board and MDF are substantially lower. So again, this aids our quest for higher ROCs.
Sure. Only one thing, Keshav, that if you are guiding for a 25% EBITDA margin and let's say a revenue to capex of 1.3x, then one could be looking at more, let's say, mid-20s kind of an ROC as compared to, let's say, significantly higher for ply business. Is that a fair way to look at it?
At this point in time, what we have seen is that the asset turnover ratio has actually been far better than the numbers that you have just suggested. So I think what we are targeting is 20% plus ROC. That has been the objective from day one. And both these businesses should be able to give us that. But yes, I am hopeful that the numbers should be slightly better than that.
Sure. Okay. Given the fact that you're closer to currently the 30% mark, that's a huge climb down.
Today we are very lucky that we have been able to deliver on a sustained basis. But going forward, you see, you need avenues for growth. And these two products represent avenues for growth. So I think that long-term margins will be good. Long-term, they will generate good ROCE. Maybe not as high as plywood or laminate. Yes, you could be correct.
Sure. Okay. Thanks a lot and wish you all the best. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shrenik Bachawat from LIC. Kindly proceed.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. So my first question is, I wanted to understand that we are planning a 550 crore capex for particle board, and also Greenlam and Merino are planning a similar capex. So as all the 3-4 players are increasing the capacities in particle board, the pricing, how is the pricing scenario for us? Like, are the organized players selling at a premium versus unorganized, or as the same pricing?
Today, Century commands a premium over the unorganized players. And going forward, like I mentioned in a complete press, there are a lot of advantages that you will get. So definitely, product quality will improve, which should get you further pricing premium. But beyond the same, you will also get the benefit of substantially lower operating costs. So going forward, I think the organized players will have a substantial benefit over the unorganized sector, particularly in the particle board space.
Okay. And particle board, how much of the sales is B2B and B2C?
Sorry, could you repeat that? No, the majority of sale is B2B. For particle board, the majority of sale is B2B.
Okay. And just I want to understand that ready-made furniture that is sold on internet, normally we say that MDF, rationale for MDF is the growth in the ready-made furniture market. But most of the online furniture that is being sold is made of particle board. I was just going through the online websites. So what is your take? Like, what is the proportion of MDF versus particle board for the online furniture that is sold?
You see, it's very difficult to club online furniture into one category because there are so many options. But see, for instance, IKEA uses more than 80% of particle board and a very small insignificant part of MDF. But in India, for residential furniture, MDF is the preferred third generation wood panel product, whereas for office furniture, particle board is currently the preferred product. On price, particle board would be one-third the price of plywood, whereas MDF would be half the price. So particle board has a distinct advantage. Hence, when you look at lower price furniture, you will more often than not see particle board. But for residential furniture, most of the ready-made residential furniture is showing a trend of leaning towards MDF rather than particle board.
Got it. And just last question. Wanted to understand that as we highlighted that the second half of this year, we'll see single-digit growth in plywood. So what gives us the confidence for FY24 to deliver 15% volume growth and 20% revenue growth?
I think, we have done a lot of things, as Nikita has mentioned. We have implemented our Salesforce automation tool, which I think is the first in the industry to do. We have changed our entire GTM. We have invested substantially in branding. So I think all of these initiatives put together have put us in a very good space. Now, slowly we will see the benefit of these initiatives coming because it does not happen overnight. Hence, we are confident that going forward, we will be able to deliver good, sustained numbers.
So 15% volume growth in plywood, you're telling on a sustainable basis we can deliver?
Sorry, could you repeat your voice?
15% volume growth in plywood is sustainable for next 3-4 years, is it?
That is what we would want to achieve, yes.
So what I'm not able to add up is the industry is far lower than that, right? And Century is already a big brand in India and well known and everything. So can we deliver so much alpha industry growth rate?
So I'll tell you where I'll... Hello?
Yeah. Just one thing. What we also must factor in is that there is a change from the unorganized to the organized that is slowly taking place. And that is really aiding our cause. You must realize that in plywood, only 30% of the market is organized. Now, if this changes, say, even by 1 or 2%, that gives a substantial boost to every single organized player. And we as market leaders fully intend to cash in on the same.
So just to add to that, we are currently 5 to 6% of the entire plywood industry. So the reason why we have launched Scenic and the amount of money we are spending behind Scenic is because we feel the opportunity lies in converting this unbranded to branded. So even if the industry is growing at a certain pace, we want to grow more than the industry because we want to capture more market share. So hence that is where the 15% comes from.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rajesh Kumar from HDFC Securities. Kindly proceed.
Yeah, hi sir. My question is first on this particle board project. Is it the existing location or a greenfield one nearby?
It is a greenfield location nearby.
Okay, and this capex which we are incurring, does it have an optionality of increasing the capacity, 2 to 3 years hence?
No, this is for the finished capacity of 1200 cubic meters.
Sorry, I missed it. This existing capacity which you are putting up, 3.6 lakh, can it be increased further? Is the land and other availabilities?
Yes, land is there, but the current line and the current shed, etc., everything that is being designed for the 3.6 lakhs. Going forward, of course, in the same location, we can set up another unit.
Okay. And sir, you don't have a laminate facility nearby, so will that have an impact on your prelam sales from this plant?
No, we didn't have a laminate facility in Chennai earlier either, right?
Right.
So prelam, the paper inventory management is not as difficult as laminate because it is just a single layer.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a challenge anywhere, whether it is Hoshiarpur, whether it is Chennai, whether it is any other location. With particle board facilities, we will be coming up with a prelam facility.
Okay. And second, in the MDF, you mentioned that the import and domestic price difference is 15%. So historically, maybe pre-COVID, what has been the sustainable pricing difference between imports and domestic pricing?
I don't have numbers with me at this point. I will get back to you on this.
Okay. Just wanting to assess that, when you're looking at from 30% to 25%, what more pressure can on a sustainable basis it lead to because domestic capacity go up. Okay.
There's a lot of disturbance at your end. Could you repeat the question?
Okay. No. The purpose of is it okay now?
Better.
Yeah. So the purpose of me, asking this question was to assess that when you are factoring in the margins to cool off to 25%, if the margins have to sustain at say 10-15% level, so can it lead to higher compression on a sustainable basis, say 20%? So this is what I wanted to assess. We'll talk on this later.
Again, I couldn't quite get your question. There's some disturbance.
No issues.
There's some background sound from your line, sir.
No issues. I'll get back on this later.
Thank you.
What is the question?
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question. I now hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
So thank you so much to all of you for taking out your valuable time to attend this call. The one point I'd like to make is, as always, your management is going to try to their level best to deliver as good a performance as we can. And hopefully, with all your support, we'll be able to achieve it. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of DAM Capital Advisors Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us. You may now disconnect your